Everyone could rise for the pledge of allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
He's right in front of me.
I couldn't see behind you. All right, number 2, approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve? So moved. Tina, second.
Second.
Bob. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion passes. This is not, we're missing. This is not the correct. That's the old agenda. No. That's the new one.
I was wondering.
Yeah, that's not.
That's the only thing, that's the only thing we've added. right?
That's not the old added, yeah.
Right.
Number 3, Durham Fair Student Director's presentation. Mr. Norm Hicks here today with a bunch of very talented students to talk about their experiences as directors, full directors of the Durham Fair. Welcome back.
It works well. Good evening.
Hello.
I brought several of my friends tonight to share with you some good news. And it's all good news. And it's good news for you and me and for them and for the Fair Association and for the community. You know, the Durham Fair, of course, is a big part of the Durham community, and it's nice to get people involved, and it's nice to get people that don't have gray hair. Although a lot of you don't, but I certainly do. Anyway, this all got started a number of years ago when I became coordinator of resident and non-resident directors at the Fair Association. And it's kind of an interesting position. It's a middle management. We have coordinators. We have about 18 of them. They are part of the executive team, and they look at different areas of the fair. We have one for public safety, one for entertainment, one for exhibits and that kind of thing. And I have the job of coordinator of directors, which is kind of an odd position because the resident and non-resident directors, of which actually Bob Moore's wife is one, really don't have a job to do. And so they are directors in that they're unassigned, they're at large, so to speak. And it was hard to get people to do this because there was really no definition to it. And I had this idea rolling around in my head. How do we inspire people to come on board and help move the fair forward? And I thought, what about teenagers? We had a number of open positions. We had people who left and people who decided not to run. And so I ran it past the executive team and they were thrilled. But that was one hurdle. And then I ran it past Deb Stone, who was equally thrilled. And we kind of got the ball rolling, really with Matt Thompson. Matt has been my go-to person. You all know Matt. He is just a great guy. You're lucky to have him. I was in the education business for a long time, and he's right up there on my list. So anyway, I ran it by him, and he sent out some sort of note, which actually I don't even know about. You would know more than I do. So on the board comes 5 students, and they volunteered. And that's what Durham and Middlefield really are all about, is volunteering. It's what we do, and it's what we do really well. The Durham Fair has about 1,700 volunteers. And I don't know the town of 7,500 plus whatever Middlefield is that could get that many people to volunteer and do it and not get paid. And so these 5 young ladies and gentlemen stepped up to the plate. And I came in March and I interviewed them and I asked them a bunch of interesting questions. Why are you interested in becoming a director at the Durham Fair? What do you expect to take away from the Durham Fair? What do you bring to the table at the Durham Fair? And I got unbelievably great answers. And I thought, we're really off to the races here. So I brought them forward to the Fair Association, and they had to be voted into office because they have become directors. Now, what does that mean? It means that they have the same vote and the same voice as all of the adults in the room. In fact, we have a directors meeting immediately following this one. So if we leave the room, don't be insulted. And so they were voted into office in March, and they have done an absolutely amazing job. They're everywhere. They come to meetings. At the fair, they took positions of responsibility in areas that were of interest to them. Hayden, for example, and I look at him because his supervisor has been raving about him every time I see him. And he took a position in the tech department. And I don't know, I think he owns it. And that's not to minimize what the ladies have done either. They've been in public safety, they've been in marketing. It's been just great news. And so I brought them here tonight to let them share a little bit about what they've done. I know you've got a full agenda, but let them tell you a little bit about what they've done and kind of get a feeling for what student directors are. I have to repeat and say this over and over again to every group I speak to. At the Durham Fair directors table, there's no children's table. These are not children. They're adults in this room. I need you to know that. So, anyway, that's how we got here. And I'm delighted that you have taken some time out to allow us to share kind of our story. And I say our story. It's not about me. It's about them. So
I believe
I'd like
there,
to lead off.
before we start though,
I-
wasn't there a Lifetime Achievement Award for the Durham Fair that was honored to Mr. Norm Hicks this year?
Yes, that was 2 weeks ago. That came as a gigantic surprise. There aren't too many people that are actually eligible for it. I started working for the fair at age 13. I was shuttling quarters back and forth because the admission to the ticket booths, because the price of admission back then was $1.50. It's not that way anymore. So anyway. You're going to, oh, so we're gonna, all right, and Sophie will introduce, you can introduce yourself, I know who you are, but.
I'm Sophie Farr, I'm a senior. Like he said, Thompson came to us, asking like kind of well, me and a couple of us want to go in business related careers. We all kind of joined, see how organization was ran through different aspects of financial or marketing. And us three, during the fair, we joined the marketing campaign kind of and did a TikTok advertisement. If anyone wants to talk about that one. Sure. A little short.
You can.
Yellow.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Oh, wow, okay. So, I'm Hannah Nelson. I'm the president of Cognishog DECA here at Cognishog. And we did a TikTok contest, video contest. So in recent years, we used to do a Snapchat filter contest where students were able to make a Snapchat filter and they would win a 4-day pass to the Durham Fair if they won. And we voted on the best filter. And so Snapchat no longer does that. So now we did TikTok this year, and Debbie Husher wanted us to get the Durham Fair TikTok involved. So I figured that would be a really good way to integrate Cognishog DECA and the filter contest along with the TikTok. And we did have a winner, and she won the 4-day pass to the Durham Fair.
I'm Sophie Poulos, and I'm also a senior. So I was with Sophie and Hannah on the marketing aspect of the fair, and we were able to interview Debbie Husher too, who's the marketing coordinator for the Durham Fair Board. And she was kind of able to give us like the specific marketing campaigns and strategies that they use. So we learned some specific communication and collaboration skills to go into our marketing fields.
Alright, so I wanted to join the directors because in Durham, like the fair is the biggest thing in our town, I would say. And it's just a great opportunity to get involved with the town. And so it's given me a lot of like confidence with public speaking. And it is showing me how a corporation works, which I will likely be in my future. And with the IT team, I want to do computer engineering when I graduate. So what we did with the IT team this year is we set up all the ticketing booths, all the computers, the monitors, the card readers. And so I did that. And then we also set up the Wi-Fi at all the booths and also a little bit of money between the booths. So.
And I'm the last student director for this year. My name is Ariana Edinger. I'm also a senior. And I was selected with these four to be on the board of directors. And we got to start, back, like he said, back in March, I think. And so it was approached to be a capstone and a career kind of side-by-side thing. So that's, I'm not sure how much you guys know, but there's a senior requirement to graduate the capstone and the career. And so this was proposed to us by Thompson as something to kind of go along with our project to help drive that. And me personally, I'm seeking a career in the military, specifically the Marine branch as an officer, hopefully. So I took up this opportunity and I joined the public safety group. We ended up meeting before the fair to help set up. And during the fair, we got to help walk around and monitor, make sure that the entrances and exits were good. We also got to make sure that, like, help find lost people, and it was just a good example to see kind of what I'm going to be getting into in the future, and it was a super great opportunity that we wouldn't have without him, so we really appreciate that.
You get them all? Yeah, I usually, when there's 5 people, I usually leave somebody out. We're going back to the gray hair thing, so. And so now we've had a little rehearsal here. Some of us are going national with this. Well, at least state. We're traveling to Norwich on Saturday to attend the Association of Connecticut Fairs annual meeting. And we're going to share our story once again in a little larger fashion. There will be several hundred people there. Get nervous. And share with them how to attract students, teenagers, call it what you like, to come to the fair and do some good for everybody. It's a long-standing issue at fairs that they don't know how to attract students. And I think this is probably the best way that I know of. And then, of course, one of the principals at the Association of Connecticut Fairs is Len Duginski, who was the treasurer of the Durham Fair, and he said you have to come to speak. So we're going. Some of us are going over on Saturday and show them how it's done. Okay, folks, thank you so much for having us tonight. We kept it under 15 minutes. So.
Bob hasn't asked a question yet.
Oh,
You know,
yes.
Bob's-
Any one of our guests?
Congratulations to you on the soccer game last night.
Yeah.
Yes.
And, but how are you gonna replace you? Since 3 or 4 of you are graduating, are you gonna be involved in the selection of the next directors?
Like we're saying. for him.
You can answer. I can.
Make
It's
it
an
up.
interesting question, and then I'll give you my answer.
I'd rather hear the-
Siblings.
Okay, so I definitely intend to stay. The Durham Fair has been in my family since my great grandmother, Charlotte Kennedy. She used to be the secretary.
Sure.
And so when the opportunity came, I was like, I gotta take that. So I'll definitely stay with the Durham Fair.
Oh, yeah. All of a sudden they're shy. So,
Norm,
uh,
what is the next generation thing about your marketing line that was the Durham Fair? Good old, clean, wholesome fun. Is that fun or good, or That was Norm's thing. His
That
voice
was
was,
the tagline we used for a long time. Unaware to most people, I write the commercials for the fair. And I also voice them. And that's a tagline I just love saying. It's just, it really captures the fair, so. My exit plan is to let them stay as long as they want. I'm gonna have a conversation with Matt Thompson about it, but I know some of them are, a lot of them I know are thinking about going away to school, which makes it kind of difficult. But we'll always leave the door open, for good talent, so. And then when they graduate and come back to Durham, they're hooked. So, anybody else with a question?
No, I just think it's amazing. It's amazing. And I know Norm and I talk about it a lot and just having student voice and it's a huge thing that you've said going on the fair for a long time. And there's just so many things that the kids can contribute, you know, and looking at it from a board level, it's, you know, a model we're looking at as well. And thank you for the perspectives.
Well, thank you for having us, and we're going to the fair meeting.
That's unclear. All right, moving on to work session to discuss post-referendum planning. Welcome back, RSD and Carson. We're so glad you're here. We know that you guys have a presentation to go through, but now with the passing for the bonding, you know, we definitely got a lot of steps forward. So I think we were looking for, I know Kim, we had all talked this week, looking for more process, timeline, and that swing space transition period. So. Go on ahead. Yeah, we starting.
So, good evening, and it's good to be back actually under these circumstances because it was a pretty long and arduous journey, so to speak. But I'm very, very glad that the community approved of the project. So as you requested, we have looked at a timeline. You know, we're in a slightly different scenario from what is more typical, where you have the June grant application, and I understand you're going to go through a special legislation process, which is done. It's been done by other communities, and you know, we might have some advice on that in terms of how if you're going down the legislative process or the backfilling of the application. I also happen to know that there are many communities that were able to get additional reimbursement in that process.
Yeah.
So that is something that you should discuss with the representatives and see how that can be integrated into whatever legislation you get.
And just before we start that, so I can update the board, we just recently got numbers today. Let me put up. We just recently found out that the reimbursement rate has increased from 51.43% to 53.21%. It's a good chunk. I don't know what that equates to number wise. I can't calculate this, but it's really encouraging, and we've been in touch with the administration, and I have been in touch with the legislators, and we should have, I think, within this month, we should have some information back. There was a bunch of different districts that were all in the same scenario this election cycle, and it seems like it's in a good process. So, yeah.
So, you know, assuming that whole process moves through as it should, you know, you were asked to put a timeline together, and I will just start out by saying it's an aggressive schedule, and I'll also let you know that we had a similar experience actually in the town of North Branford. And we started, that process started similarly. We did a study and then it started in January. So I know it's doable. We've done it in the past and, you know, we do have some background, so that helps. But in general, what we anticipate is what your next step needs to be is to really go through the selection process of the design team and the construction management team. I think that's a real integral part of what needs to happen. The two need to work together to really develop not only the documents, but also work in what we refer to as the pre-construction phase, which is design, estimating, constructability, all of those things take place. So important to have those two teams on board as soon as possible. We put in a date to say, you need to put an RFP for the teams and the architects. And this is a process required by the state, so there's nothing new about it. And then from that process, you would make a selection. Typically, you interview. So people respond to the RFP. Then you have interviews of up to 4 firms. And based on the interviews and the proposals, you make a determination on the architectural team. And you would do something similar for the selection of the construction management team. There are also cases, many times you would also consider an OPM, owner's project manager. So this group needs to be brought on board as soon as possible. Because once the design team is brought on board, there's a lot of different items that need to be accomplished. Things like surveys and hazmat assessments, traffic analysis. So there's many different aspects of what needs to be brought on board, and that the entire team needs to work on that. Once the entire team is on board, the first thing we'll do is we'll have a meeting with the state, a prep meeting with the state to just make sure everybody understands what the scope of the project is, how we're proceeding, and what the timeline is. Typically, we will talk about phasing if there are multiple phases, because as we develop documents, when we'll go to the state, at each phase, we have to have a separate, what's called the PCR, plan review meeting with the state. So that process will take place. So at the prep meeting, those issues will be discussed and we'll put an overall timeline together. In the case of this project, we want to start construction potentially in July. That's the goal, and that's an aggressive goal. And the only way we can do that is to really phase this project. And we've done this on multiple projects, not just Branford. So what we anticipate the first phase will be is to create the swing space that we need. And we're going to have a discussion on swing space. And I can talk about it more then, but during the whole process of budgeting and design, we talked about keeping, working within the existing space and the existing schools. And we did talk about portables and the cost of portables and whether, what's a better solution. And so we'll discuss that as we go further on into the presentation. But for right now, what we would have is the first option, the first phase would be developing the swing space, whether it's through portables or through a space identified within the existing schools. And even that will have an approval process as we go through, because we want to make sure that anything that we do has the backing of the state and that we're going to be eligible for reimbursement on it. So that's the first step that will take place. Concurrent to this process, we will also start the phase 1, or phase 2, which is really the phase 1 of construction. And by that, I mean on the project itself. So from day 1, the design process starts. It just parts of it get done earlier so that each phase gets bid out and then construction started. So the phase 1 in terms of swing space would start sometime in the April timeframe for construction. And phase two, which in our case here, we think the most prudent thing is to do demolition, hazmat, and site work. Those and would be a phase one scope of work, which should, the goal would be to get all that work done early, go through all the land use approvals, and actually start that construction, and in the summer when the school is vacated and the students have moved. So the goal is, again, prepare the swing space, so as soon as school is out, there's a short period of time where you move, everybody moves out, anything that you want to keep within, that's within the building gets moved out because you want to use it at other locations. And then you turn it over to the construction team. So that needs to be considered, and that time needs to be considered. Generally, we would have, I mean, some districts will use the custodial stuff, but generally you have a moving company work with you to move everything out, because you want to take advantage of the summer and minimize that time that's being on the move. Many times, the schools are preparing ahead of time. Teachers prepare their classrooms and what they're going to take. Some of the material is taken home, some of it is boxed so that it can be moved easily into the space that it's going to. So that process is what we anticipate is that it would go through the July timeframe, and we'd have bids in hand, so the construction can start in that phase in the July-August timeframe. Once that's underway, the third phase is then the rest of the building. And that design again starts at the same time as all the other phases, but the timeframe just extends out to, I believe we had the design phase going through October. In that, it's when I say design phase, it's design, it's approvals from the state, it's the bidding process, it's the scope review of the contractor, and so I'm including all of that in that time frame, so that really in early November, or and if we can better it in October, that part of the construction can start. The whole idea of bringing the construction manager on board, the other members of the team on board, is to make sure, because they will have other ideas as well. For instance, one idea that maybe we also include something like the steel package in the phase two, so that the fall, you not only are putting the foundations in, and then maybe you're putting the foundations and the steel in. So there's various ways that you can approach that, and that the goal essentially is to start that first construction package in the summer, and then to continue it with the other packages in the fall. And that then takes you all the way through for, I've shown roughly 24-month period. I think in our original planning, we said 24 to 36 months, and whatever we can do by the fact that we don't have an occupied school, we certainly made a big dent in that time frame, even though at that point it was going to be longer. But that's the idea, that we would try to expedite it and get this work done, so that in a 2-year window you would have the building completed. And then, ideally, you want to finish it in the July timeframe, July to the beginning of August, because you still have furniture to be delivered. You still have the move itself back into the building. So all of those things take time. So this is a big picture schedule of what your next steps are. There's a multitude of approvals that will happen, like for instance, with land use and other agencies, local agencies and state agencies. And that's all factored into this, into the schedule as well. So.
For Kim, there's a bond sale in here and some note issuances that Kim and the board will have to deal with as well.
My process.
Yeah, and I should mention that, the process with the state is you put your application in. The form of funding isn't approved till the following July. So most districts would work with you don't want to wait to do the design work after that because the escalation factor is going to cost you more. And we discussed this during the planning phases too, so that's why we're moving forward all the way through.
And I think looking at the construction phases too, and when that OGA comes into place, that May timeframe, my only concern with the complex is the soccer fields at Memorial. Are those, and I know part of it's under the purview of the contractor, whether they think that those could be used in that first year, the hazmat abatement and the construction. So I know probably don't know the answer to that, but we need to be able to tell that group if those fields are going to be used for either of those construction years. And early, because it's not easy to secure the fields.
And generally what we try to do is make sure that all those priorities are identified. So that again, the team itself, and that's why the advantage of having a construction manager on board who will be developing the more detailed schedule. And if there's a priority to say, yes, we want to keep this field active for as long as we can, they will look at that. They'll also tell you what the cost implications of doing that, because anytime you're trying to keep something going during in an occupied site, that complicates the process, and we have to make sure that the students are protected and there's parking there, and how do they, get on and off the field. So all those issues would be discussed.
So
But-
it's possible.
It is possible, we've done it. It's not a new aspect to it, but it's just if you plan it that way, then, and you make sure that you are, considering all the negatives and the positives and making that decision, you write that into your specifications for anybody
the
that's bidding.
contractor, yeah. Because there's just, I know we talked all about before, there's been a significant amount of money and time and effort to maintain those fields by that organization. So if they can't use it during that time, we're gonna have to be able to put it back to the space, if not even better than it is now, and improve that space. So we should probably talk to them. And make sure it's not-
So this slide is really about enrollment projections and what we were considering when we were developing not just the maximum enrollment and how we planned the new school, but also considering how do we, what the student count is going to be when we move during that first phase and swing space that needs to be provided. And we have looked at this analysis in terms of really the swing space that you need to make sure that the student count that will be in place in the 2 years where construction is occurring, that's the number that we're working towards, not the greatest enrollment, which occurs later in the years. I think it occurs in the 31, 32, and 32, 33 years. So that's something that we want to just make sure everybody looked at. We also, those
Just going back to that one slide, just for clarification, you guys want to change it, but there's a typo where it says 4th grade continue at Brewster. And that's needs to move to Lyman.
okay.
It's the,
because
under the
it-
4th grade.
The years are all.
And the years are a bit off,
25
yeah.
and 27.
So we'll update that whole grade outlook.
Okay. So, but the goal was to look at it in terms of the highest enrollment projections, but we then also, on Colin's slide, we looked at it with what happens with the medium enrollment projections. And the reason we're doing that is just to say, we've got a number of students that per classroom, and we're trying to max it out. So we want to understand what the high enrollment projection impact is and a medium enrollment projection is. Because, we want to make sure the capacity within the existing schools is going to have an impact on what is based on the enrollment projections. So we went through and did an analysis that is not really a large change. For instance, the kindergarten, instead of the high projection is 112, and the medium projection is 110. So there's not a great difference, but where we did highlight it is that by having maybe instead of 20 students, 21 or 22 in a grade, at, let's say, at the second grade level, you can have greater efficiency in the number of classrooms, and therefore not have to provide additional space. This will all be reanalyzed as we move forward. So these are big picture concepts that we would look at, but we needed to develop this in order to go to the next step in terms of how the phasing would occur and what the number of students would be in that in each school. So this slide represents what would happen and what we had talked about, and we actually talked about multiple different options, but in this particular option, we're referring to space option 1. For the most part, 5th grade moves to strong, and then the rooster stays the same with pre-K through 1, and then 2 through 4 are housed at Lyman. And this was the approach to that. In order to do that, what will happen is we will need to refurbish and update the portable classrooms. And that had always been planned, we had budgeted for it, and that's really the budget that we developed when we looked at the big picture and the budget that went out to referendum. And in that, so that is what we had a line item for phasing and swing space. And this scenario is what we budgeted in the overall budget that was developed. So the idea was to renovate those 4 portables, and it also included funds to move the students from Memorial to Lyman, and also from Memorial to Strong. So there's a move budget in there too. So those 2 items were covered, but it's very simple. What we did is using the enrollment projections, we assigned classrooms based on the number of classrooms that would be needed, and we have the breakdown in terms of the 5th graders being at Strong, 2 through 4 at Lyman, and some of the things that we want to make sure and cover is whether we have adequate resource spaces. And one of the things we were a little concerned about was, do we have enough room for art and music, or in many cases when we have projects such as this, where we're trying to utilize existing buildings. I think we may have even talked about it. In some cases, we've used gymnasiums and created classrooms. By doing that, we didn't have to bring portable classrooms in. And we'll talk about portable classrooms in a minute. But in this case, we don't have to use those large assembly spaces, but we may have to use, depending on where the enrollment ends up, we may have to use an art room or a space for music on a temporary basis. But that would be at the next level of investigation and detailing of how many spaces are needed within each of the buildings. So that was the option that we went out with, and that the referendum budget was based on. We looked at options for portable classrooms, and they can certainly be done. Generally, and we brought portable classrooms into projects. Generally, what we find is if people are renovating each of the schools one at a time, then the whole renovation process takes a long time because you're working within existing space. And bringing in portables helps you to limit and to consolidate the amount of time that the overall project would take. And certainly time is money in construction. So if you can contract the amount of time needed to finish the entire project, there's a value to that, and you analyze it. In our case here, what we did is we looked at what would happen is if we brought portables, 4 portables into Lyman, and try to accommodate some of the students there. We can do that. Generally, these are rental units. we did get pricing, and this is from back in August when we were doing this, from another project where they were bringing in portables, and we took that pricing and developed this budget here. And so, again, this was based on the 30-month window for the portable rental. The fact is that when you do that, it's not just the rental component, it's the transportation, it's the installation. And the installation means there's site work, there's foundations and piers that need to be put in for the portables. You still have to create the ramps and access to to each of those spaces. With security, we have to make sure that the instruction area is secure. We have to consider, is it an open access? So in other words, ramps and these open corridors rather than an enclosed, weather protected connection. So those are things we took the attitude that it's just going to be ramps and access provided, but with some fencing around it. So there would be some level of security and there would be some additional cameras. Each of those items adds some cost to it. Generally, when we looked at where the portable classrooms would go, and in the case of Lyman, it was going to be right where the other ones are. It makes the most sense. There's the connection to the existing building makes sense. And of course, there's parking in that area. So, displace parking, you're adding more students to the building, you're displacing parking. So you should be planning for temporary parking as a result of that. So we factored that into this number. And then we still were planning on using those existing portables. So when we laid all this out, as you can see, and all this carrier contingency, we had an estimated estimate of 1,185,000. So basically, it increases the cost by about 800,000 to 900,000 to have the portables. So if back when we were talking about it, the idea was why spend that money if we can accommodate the students within the existing space? That would be the best solution. And that other money, instead of going for something that would be installed and then removed, because this includes removal of the portables once the students are out of that space, therefore just have spent money on something that's not tangible. It's really something that's going to go away after a while. In this case, we're spending the money on improving the school and doing what's best for the school. So those were the main concerns that we had about bringing the portables. Again, not to say that it can't be done. There's a cost factor to it. I would say, it does add time to the approval process. And so that schedule that I showed you, where we're trying to move the students and move everything out of Memorial into, the thinking is it'll go directly to where it needs to go. So into the classrooms, into the spaces that are going to be ready to receive that. In the case of the portables, that may not be the case. It would be, the time frame is more extended. I was told, based on some inquiries, that there are some challenges right now in getting some of the portables. So getting this process started at this date and time may be an issue in terms of receiving the portables in a timely fashion. So that duration may take us further into the summer, which doesn't mean you can't start the scope of the other project, but what it does mean that you would have to do two moves. You have to move whatever you have, which you're taking from Memorial to a location, store it there, and then move it into the portables one that will expense. So every time you do that, there's costs and more time spent in doing that work. As I always say, there's always a security concern because these are not enclosed spaces. Yes, we have cameras there, but if it can be avoided, it should be. Overall, the budget is the other aspect of it. If you were to decide that we're going to go with portables and we want to enclose the access to the classrooms, then there would be some additional funds to build the enclosure around the access hallways, so to speak, to the portables. So these are some of the reasons why we went in the direction of trying to work within the existing space, within the existing schools, rather than try to bring the portables in. Doesn't mean we can't do that, it just means that if we do, that money has to come out of the budget that you establish for the school itself, and somewhere we have to make up the difference if that were the case. Really, those are the two key things. I do have some other slides for enrollment, but we pretty much discussed those, and then the state reimbursement aspect of it. So, any questions, I can open it up.
Well, I think looking at the swing spaces, no, I understand you guys, administration that you guys met, and this was what came up as the best scenario. And I know you understand that there is some concern about putting Fifth at Strong. What other options are we even, aside from the fact that this vote stems on the fact that it stated Strong School would house fifth grade? So I understand that that's been conveyed, people voted on a project based on that. But is it within our purview to relook at the swing space to possibly find another way for fifth grade? Is it feasible to put portables somewhere for fifth grade? Not just financially, but is it doable? I just think we said we would do our best to listen to the public, and I think we need to do that. And I know even talking to Kim, had some confusion as to when we moved with Fifth and how that was going to work, and I'm confident the administration and you guys came up with a plan that everyone can fit, but is there another solution?
You could add portables at multiple buildings, The reason I wouldn't, again, recommend that, because it's not a one-to-one here. And the reason being is all those costs with the installation, the utilities, all of that stuff has to now be repeated if you do. That's why when we looked at it, we did look at multiple buildings, putting portables at multiple buildings, but the cost kept going up.
I remember that, and the cost was like astronomical.
Because you have to still do the site work, the foundations, and now you're doing it at two different locations, so it complicates it from that perspective. So if you chose to say that's fine, we do want to do that, then we can make it work. It's going to be tight. We're already, for instance, at Lyman, by putting the 4 portables in, we're taking up a lot of space.
Yeah.
So the question would be, well, where do we put the other portables? You could put 2 or 3 or 4 more on there, but then you take that much more away from parking and circulation on a site that is really, really tight.
Challenging.
Yeah.
With the slope.
I remember we
variable
looked
too,
at that,
top,
yeah.
Can I say something?
Yeah, of course.
So a few things just to remind everybody, because we've been at this for a while. Way back when Rusty and Carson drafted some plans that did not involve any relocation to Strong. It was going to be a Brewster Lyman.
Yep.
The concern there for the administration, and I believe the board shared it, was that we couldn't do that without breaking up a grade level. And since we just made a move and a commitment to keeping grade levels together, and so that's where we kind of went in this direction. The other thing I would say, and to Lindsay's question and to your answer, I think we can do whatever, but whatever needs to start pretty soon because of the schedule he just put out. When he's done, we have our piece to share about the planning that we would like to start to engage in that is currently anchored to what we kind of thought we were doing. And if that's going to be different, we can't really start that planning until we know what the configuration is going to be. And that's not a way of saying, to your point, Lindsay, that we don't hear the concerns that some people have shared, or that we can't be flexible either financially or logistically. I just want to make sure everyone hears that.
Well, and I
Because,
went through the minutes, and I know how many times we've all talked about this, but usually it's in a public hearing in the auditorium. And so if it's not the right thing to be able to change the plan though it is, then I want to be able to communicate that. I want to be able to say this isn't feasible either financially, or it's not feasible space-wise or septic. And I just think we need to do that. I think it's important. And I know what Doug was just talking about when the other plan was to split the second grade up. And one second grade would go to parts, two classrooms of second grade, we're gonna go to Lyman, and then 4 we're going to Brewster in those portables, right? Was that the original?
There were actually several scenarios. We had some where we had five second grades, 2 at one school and 3 at the other. Then we had ones with portables. And in each case, with the ones without portables, we kept taking existing space away. That's usable space, and that may be needed for, again, resource rooms and those type. of
The
things.
other thing that drove the thinking anyway was that even though it would be tight at both campuses, obviously, that Strong's population and layout was better equipped to accept new children and adults than Brewster's was.
Yeah.
And so that's how we kind of arrived at that conclusion.
And I think the 5th graders, next year, they're going into 6th, so they'd be at the school itself, so that was a really.
Right, and that was one of the
That
positives.
transition
They have
really-
consistency in a 4-year building, and I think people appreciate that. But I would like to see, depending on the timeline when you want to start the next step of moving forward, I think we need to have a quick turnaround with that group of 4th grade parents and the 3rd grade parents, just to say, hey, this is what we're gonna do, whether the board does it or a couple of us do it. Just to be able to get some feedback and give them some information, say, this is why we think this is feasible, or hey, yeah, let's entertain this. But we need to hear that. Consensus on it?
We also, I think it would be pertinent to bring in the building administrators who we were just talking to at the Student Achievement Committee meeting that we just had about what does that look like? What does that 5-8 configuration look like? What does that look like in terms of the parent concerns, which are valid and need to be addressed? And how do they meet there? I don't know what adding an additional $1 million to this does. I mean, not just with
Well, it eats
the
into
timing.
it doesn't add it to the project, but it would eat into the contingency, right? Is that, and some of the portables do have a reimbursement, right? The state reimbursement.
Well, and it's also how you would do it. You know, one of the suggestions is just put them all at Lyman. I think that's what Rusty was speaking to. So that instead of being a 2 through 4 campus, as has been proposed, it'd be a 2 through 5 campus. And an additional concern that I have would be, in addition to all the ones that Rusty came up with, is the infrastructure spaces. So your cafeterias, your gymnasiums, anything that is shared. Yeah, you can do the classroom instruction. You can even have restrooms out there. In addition to the parking and the safety, which we already talked about, and the cost. Now, can we actually do PE in the cold months? We still have cold months, indoors and music and just think about anything that everybody kind of rotates through and shares.
Well, even that, just with student achievement, we just came up, we were talking about the 5th grade schedule, and then we were like, oh, what are clubs gonna look like if they move to Strong? Are they gonna follow the 5 through 8 clubs? Are they gonna have their own clubs? Like, those are the things that we need to figure out and disseminate before.
No, I agree. And Tina, to your point, and this, I don't know if this is a chicken or an egg, but I think those parents deserve those answers too. We don't have those answers at the moment because we're waiting for the referendum to pass. And we're waiting for the board to give us the go-ahead to start planning all that, those details. We know big picture in working with Rusty that there's space there. But if I'm a parent, now I'm kind of getting into my section, we want to know what a bell schedules look like, what a lunch schedules look like, what a bus schedules look like, start times, finish times. That work hasn't been done yet. We want to start it like immediately. And we want you all to tell us to do it if you want us to. So,
Right, but if you could wait 2 weeks so we can set up a meeting with these.
oh, yeah. I
families
just
and
wanted to make sure. I
PTOs.
thought when I heard Tina, and if I misunderstood, that part of meeting with these parents would be they want those answers now and they expect us to give them those answers. We won't have those answers in a week. or
No,
two.
I want to hear from
Look, I
them.
think
I
they
want to
want
know
to
if
be a
they have
part of it.
ideas.
Can I
Go ahead.
clarify? So let me just clarify what I was actually saying. What I was saying was the parents have concerns and they need to feel heard in those concerns in a way that is beyond sending an email or attending a meeting, sitting down together, having a conversation. I think our time,
idea.
I think our time is going to be better spent. This was a decision that was made by the group to do this, and I feel like our time and our money, this plan is in place, right? We're not like spitballing now what we're gonna do over the next 6 to 12 months. There was a plan in place that we've prepared parents for. And yes, we need more detail. We need to get them more information. We need to talk to them about busing and all of that. And I get that we don't have a plan for that quite yet because we were waiting to see what would happen. But I think our time would be better spent talking to families than rehashing options. Do you know what I'm saying?
I'm 100% with you on that, yeah.
Okay, that's, I
Yeah.
just wanted to make sure that I was clear about that. Like we get one shot at this. This is like a $76 million project that I'm probably not gonna have the privilege to be a part of again in my lifetime. Like, we need to get it right, and we need to do right by our contingency. We need to do right by the parents who are speaking up. And also honor time and money.
And if I
at
heard
the
you
same
say
time.
that, what you're saying is we don't meet with them so that they can try to convince us not to do it this way,
Correct.
but to ask them to give us input on how to do it well.
Exactly.
Okay, and I just think that expectation would need to be stated up
I
front.
mean, people don't.
That's
have
a very
to agree
different-
with me,
that's
But
a- yeah.
that's where I am
Okay.
on that.
Do we think the building committee should have a hand in this as well? I mean, we have some very astute people that know how to do these transitions, and that could be part of the conversation as well. They've lived it. They've been part of
I
it.
think they're technically supposed to jump in. I mean, they've been along with us on this whole process, but until the state grant approval comes, that's when they really get the project and it's theirs. But we've been looping them in all along. And, I did send them out the documents, so they're gonna have that as well, but it wouldn't hurt to loop them in on a couple of them on one of the parent conversations. They might be able to answer some stuff on an engineering level. Any other questions?
We
are excited.
Phenomenal.
You ready
Thank
for mine?
you. The timeline is like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay, and first, if they don't mind staying, just, I'll be as quick as I can, if the board doesn't have any questions, and I know we have others here that want to speak to other topics. So during the recent reconfiguration, we had a single team, a staff team that met weekly, and reported back to the board monthly, you guys might remember, and then we were sending out emails to the various groups who wanted to get those updates. And this is the same approach that we would want to take to this work. However, it can't be a single team anymore, we don't believe, because there's too many moving parts and too many things happening. I think Rusty and Carson did a good job of introducing probably the one that's front and center, which is what I would call a construction team. And I think that's one that the board and the building committee or subsets thereof would have to be part of, staff to be part of that too, obviously, and maybe others. The primary being Memorial, but also any redesign work at Strong and Lyman. Then we envision another team, a staff team that would focus on the move. 2 moves we envision, a move from Memorial to Lyman and a move from Memorial to Strong that could be executed right at the end of the school year, the same way we executed the move at the end of this school year for the reconfiguration. We would have another team that would focus on staffing. That may not be front and center right now, but to our employees, looking at Kevin right now, that's a very important part. And they've already started asking, where am I going to be? What am I going to do? How is all of this going to work? We're also going from 5 buildings to 4 in this scenario. There may be a reduction in force scenario, especially for like the non-teaching, non-follow the children staff. And we would want to get those things in front of you as soon as possible. Then we have the stuff I referenced earlier, which I'm calling just for the sake of discussion. John Lyman grades 2 to 4 operations. And another one that would be Strong grades 5 to 8 operations and will include things like schedules, like lunch shifts, like buses, like start and end times. Deciding whether we're going to issue Chromebooks to go home with 5th graders, which we currently don't do, but maybe we decide to do, and probably a whole lot of other things. Those are just kind of the big kind of buckets. And then last but not least,
coming back to the board and with Kim leading us, how does all of this feed into the budget proposal, which will be upon us in early February? And so that kind of goes back to my earlier comments about kind of needing to get moving on some of this stuff, especially with 2 major holidays in between now and then, on top of everything else that Rusty laid out that has to be done with architect selection, construction management selection. It all has to kind of happen concurrently. And so, you know, we want to do the stuff that we feel like the staff could do, but keep the board informed of that, while others perhaps are leading those construction pieces. And I don't know if you guys know this or not, but probably about, I don't know, 2 months ago, Lindsay and Bob and I started meeting weekly. We used to do monthly just ahead of board meetings. We're doing weekly now. I believe that structure lends itself to being able to give them weekly updates on the progress, lack thereof, of these various groups, in addition to the monthly updates we would give to you all at these meetings, and more frequently, if these guys or you all felt like that would need to happen. But I guess I would just pause here and ask, does that sound like a roadmap that kind of works, not just in terms of the major work functions, but the way we would be communicating all of this out, not just with you all again, but through Parent Square and other ways to, you know, parents, employees, probably the 2 most important constituent groups, but the broader community as well.
Yeah, I think we need a working document too for timeline, like including all of this timeline, but then that timeline.
Yep.
And understanding when those are meeting, who's meeting.
Yep.
We have to keep our communication really tight on this one and go together. It's a lot. Yeah.
And lastly, we talked about staffing being a big deal. One of the things that I believe needs to get decided sooner versus later is what the administrative level staffing will look like under this new configuration. And I'm not asking for a vote tonight, that wouldn't be fair, but I'm asking you to consider one as early as the December 11th meeting, our next regular meeting. And what I'm going to recommend for this temporary relocation starting July 1 would be a few things. Hopefully we can all agree, if we're vacating the campus at Memorial, we wouldn't need a principal there anymore. I don't know what they would do except kind of be in the way. So that position would be recommended for elimination. Concurrently, I'm recommending a 12-month assistant principal be at Strong Middle School, with it being a grade 5 through 8 configuration, in recognition of the extra children and families and employees that we would be serving there. And then in addition to that, concurrently, we currently have a coordinator of student affairs position at Strong, which is in the teacher bargaining unit, which is a 10-month position. I would recommend eliminating that position. So essentially the 12-month assistant principal would replace the current 10-month coordinator of student affairs position. And the last one I'd ask you to consider would be a 10-month assistant principal at John Lyman School, recognizing that we will now have an entire grade level added there, 2, 3, and 4, with all the challenges that we're kind of talking about.
And this is just for during the construction
This
phase.
is just for the 2 years, hopefully, until the new building is able to open. And then another discussion will have to be had about what does all that look like for a 3-school configuration. So this, I'm glad you asked that clarifying question. This would essentially be a 4-school configuration. Now, again, we will have to do that for all levels of staffing, but it's really important for us to know what the leadership staff looks like, because those folks are also going to be then involved in the planning. And I'm not using names tonight because that would be inappropriate, I believe, but also because our bargaining agreements speak to different options and levers that get pulled essentially when these actions would be taken. And we'd have to work with our administrative bargaining unit to come up with an MOU, but it's clearly within the board's purview to make these decisions. We inform the bargaining unit and then get those things in place. And the budgetary aspect of what I just recommended is relatively neutral. I'm talking about taking one 12-month FTE, currently the Memorial principal, and reclassifying it from a budget standpoint not necessarily a personnel standpoint, as a 12-month assistant principal. So roughly the same cost in terms of salary and benefits. And then taking the 10-month coordinator student affairs position that's currently at the middle school and reassigning that to Lyman as a 10-month assistant principal, something we currently don't have, but certainly is something that does exist in places and that we could craft. So again, salary benefits roughly the same. And again, I'm not asking you to discuss it tonight. You're just hearing it the first time. I did run it by Lindsay and Bob. And I did share with our team that I'd be bringing it up tonight because it affects them. Wanted them not to be surprised tonight, but if you all would give that some consideration and then maybe through your officers, let us know if that's something you'd be willing to vote on in December, that would be very helpful for this entire process.
Sorry, I just have a question
Yep.
about that. So if we were to keep strong 6 through 8 and not add the 5th grade, do you foresee that we would need another principal there or just keep it
No.
with one?
Correct.
So that would be a benefit also to not move 5th grade because we wouldn't need another person.
That's
there.
correct. And
Okay.
again, based on the previous conversation, I wasn't aware that that was something we were considering.
Well, I think it has been something we've been considering because we've been all getting constant emails about like wanting to definitely still look at that. I'm
And it's
still,
not a new concern. This has
No.
been a concern.
it's
since
been a
the
concern and I'm
beginning, so.
definitely an advocate of not putting 5th grade over a strong.
Okay.
So I would like to see it looked at so we can, I mean, I agree with you, especially if we keep Lyman 2nd through 5th, then he would definitely need probably not a 10-month, but a 12-month assistant.
So since that question is open, do you even want us to start doing this planning in earnest? Because all the stuff I just talked
No,
about was,
we did, but we just want a few weeks to meet with parents and talk to parents and get the building committee together and have a discussion on what their concerns are and what their ideas are. You'd
Okay.
be surprised how many parents have ideas about what is good for their kids.
I'm not disagreeing with that. I just wanted to make sure I heard what the plan was.
I don't expect this to take a long process. I think,
Yeah.
they've been talking, all these parents have been talking about this from the beginning. Like they have their ideas, they've had the ideas. We just need to listen to them. If any of them are feasible, then we need to take action on them. If they're not feasible and it's not financially feasible, it's tough. I get.
Right, but we have to at least try. We have to at least see if it can work.
So let's give it a few weeks and we'll figure out. I can reach out to the PTOs who will have lists for those grade levels. Let's see if we can coordinate something before. 13th, getting close to things, so try to do it before Thanksgiving. See if we can do something early the week. Thanksgiving closed on Wednesday. We could do something Monday or Tuesday that week, maybe the 18th. So we'll reach out to the PTOs and see if we can gather that.
And then if that doesn't work for that date, like, I feel like we can't keep punting it, down the road because.
Yeah, we're
I
messing
do-
with a timeline.
I agree with Doug, like the staff needs to know, we need to know, and it's reassuring to parents to be able to say to them, even if they're still concerned after the conversations, right? And then getting input and all that, like planning can actually start for what that's called like. So I mean, would we have time at the next board meeting, if you have that meeting in November, to then have a conversation about what Doug just proposed and vote on it?
We don't have
In
to
the
wait till
December
that
meeting?
December meeting. We could have a meeting after that. If we get enough from the forum that we really need to have a discussion, we can pull a virtual meeting for a special meeting and just tease it out and see what was there. And that way we can give a go ahead from there. That works.
Thank you, Rusty.
Just one comment.
Yeah.
The schedule is a really aggressive schedule, so one of the things you should consider is any delay in the start of this process just pushes you into the following school year. And then, the practical time for any transition at that point becomes the winter break, potentially. And even that's a very short period of time. So those are the issues that we have to contend with, and just leave that with you.
Would that, like, when would you think, without interrupting it, we could have that forum and have a meeting to kind of discuss it out and not cause any issues, like before December
Yeah, I mean, you have some time to
Yeah.
do that, and I'm just saying, so if you do that in that time frame, I don't think there'll be an issue. As long as you're concurrently moving some of the other
Things
things
forward.
forward, like, you
Yeah.
know, the selection process and getting the team on board.
Because
That's
there's
a
still a
critical-
lot we can do.
Yeah.
Between them. Okay.
I agree, and unless it seems unwise to you all, we can start this planning process. Again, we're not gonna figure it all out in 2 weeks anyway. And then if you tell us to pivot in a different direction, we will. And then to Rusty's point, we're not losing time on any of this. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Rusty.
Bye. All right, I have chairman update. I have a bunch of stuff under communications. I know, I had a bunch of stuff on Rusty with the swing spaces that I was gonna put on. We were able to get that through him, so that's really good. Oh, thank. I always end up hitting it. Okay, anything else under that, superintendent search, all right, so, as most of you know, that we put together a full board search committee for the superintendent search. In the next few weeks, we're gonna be meeting with Gabe, looking through hiring a search firm who can guide us in that process, and they're the ones that will have more information on surveys, forums, how we can have as much community input as possible on this. So we should have information our next meeting, and we'll hit the ground running with that in conjunction with the search firm to engage our students, parents and staff. And so we do expect, based on, remember I had told the board this summer, I'd done a lot of the UConn mock surveys with their graduates. And it was a great process to see. I want to try to get Patrice from CABE to come out and just do an overview with us before we jump in with a search firm, so she can just kind of go over it with us. I'll see her at the convention on Thursday, so I'll be with CABE and CAPS all weekend, so I'll try to touch base with her and then get a date, even if it's just virtual, for us to talk. And so we'll be doing that. We'll be putting together surveys, small group sessions, small group forums in that review process. And as I mentioned before, outside the superintendent search, there's some great news on the grant. We went from 51.43% to 53.21%. And we're going to be engaging with the legislators in the next few weeks and hopefully have answers on that. I think Middletown and a couple of districts are having the same issue. The only thing I have left for chairman update is something I'd like to read before public comment. Good evening. On behalf of the Board of Education, I'd like to address some recent inquiries and clarify our position regarding the football program and related concerns. First, I want to let you know that while the board did not add the program to tonight's agenda, we have revised the agenda to allow for the public to be heard at the first public comment, which doesn't normally happen. The concerns that have been raised involve personnel issues, which are managed by the administration. For clarification, that means the superintendent, principals, athletic director, and HR director, and are outside the purview of the board. As such, while this can cause confusion and frustration, the details of these matters are generally not shared with third parties, including the board, to respect privacy and maintain proper administrative procedures. I'd also like to reaffirm that the board remains committed to supporting our football program here at Coggins. The past few years, we have made significant investments, including turf replacement, constructing the field house, installing restrooms, installing the field lighting, a full-time trainer for our students, and a partnership with the bench warmers to outfit the Coggins Regional High School weight room with new equipment. Finally, the administration is working diligently to address any current challenges within the program. We trust that they will continue to work in the best interest of our students and community and communicate the information when appropriate. We appreciate your support and patience as the administration continues to address these matters, and any concerns should be directed to the administration. With that, we will move on to public comment under 6. While the board does not respond to public comment during our meetings, we appreciate your comments and we will have the appropriate staff member reach out to you. As you come forward, please state your name and town. And for public comment policy, limit your comments to 3 minutes. Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead.
Are we setting a timer? Just to
I
make
think
sure.
Linda usually does.
I got you. You do? That's your better. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Caitlin Brady. I have a current 4th grader and a current 1st grader. My daughters have been through a ton of change in the past 2 years. Thankfully, my younger daughter has had a flawless acceptance of Brewster. She loves it. That change was still a big deal for my family. I work at Lyman. Part of the reason why I chose to work there was for transportation. Now my daughter has a huge commute in the morning. My other daughter has to wait at Memorial for a very long time to get on her bus to get home. But anyway, besides that fact, I am shocked that we're talking about moving, or not talking about it, it's happening, 5th grade to Strong. And that you're moving your 4th graders, half of them, or a little less than half, back to Lyman. That is just boggles my mind. Also, I have my 4th grader is a Falcon cheerleader, and we just got an email saying that we might not be able to play football on our field because the price that the district is going to charge the Falcons is beyond the scope that a local organization can support. I would urge you to think of a different reconfiguration for the 4th graders. A lot of preschools are in high schools. Move the pre-K up to the high school. That's a lot of portables at Brewster that open up. So that's my piece. Thank you.
Good morning, good morning, long day, good evening. I'm Deborah Oswald, I'm from the town of Durham. Good evening, distinguished members of the Board of Education, Durham residents. I'm grateful for the opportunity to address you tonight regarding the vital importance of fostering a positive school climate. Positive school climate is characterized by the quality and character of a school life, focusing on nurturing relationships within the school community. It is built upon patterns of people's experiences and encompasses norms, values, interpersonal relationships, teaching, learning, leadership, practices, and organizational structures. According to Connecticut School Climate Policy, a positive school climate promotes teaching and learning environments where all students thrive academically and socially. When students feel supported, safe, and valued, their emotional and mental well-being improves, equipping them with resilience to navigate life's challenges. Furthermore, such an environment cultivates essential life skills like cooperation, problem solving, and communication. However, we must recognize that a positive school climate extends beyond students. The school community includes faculty, administration, and families. It is imperative to ask ourselves, do all members of this community feel supported, safe, and valued? Are there instances of real or perceived power imbalances that undermine the sense of safety and inclusion? The state defines bullying as unwanted and aggressive behavior involving a real or perceived power imbalance. With this in mind, I urge you, consider the following. Are there bullying behaviors that create an environment contradicting what legislation aims to achieve? Are we adhering to Connecticut school climate standards, emphasizing the development and sustainability of restorative infrastructure, promoting capacity, accountability, and sustainability? Or are we in an environment where hasty, abrupt decisions are made without allowing for more restorative approach. As the legislation recommends, by prioritizing our positive school climate, we not only comply with our state's legislation, but we also invest in our children's future and well-being of our community. Let us collaborate to create environments where students, staff, and families can realize their full potential. Thank you for your attention, and let us continue to work together to support the success of our students and schools. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Sass and I'm a resident of Durham. I've lived in this district my entire life. I currently have 2 children in district. One is a senior on the football team and the other is an 8th grader at Strong. I am here to speak tonight about the ongoing issue with the football program. I've been a part of the football program in one shape or another for the past 18 years, starting at the youth league. Football is like no other sport in the way the team and families bond together. The same pattern of complaints with the same individuals started at the youth level with the youth and football cheer teams. It was always complaint after complaint after complaint, and no one else out of the 50 or so families shared these feelings, yet the complaints and issues kept coming. Now, with the issues and complaints at the high school level, it has become apparent that this seems to be a long-standing personal agenda against the coaches and football. The football program, athletes, and coaching staff are consistently having to look over their shoulder and worry about what the next complaint issue will be. So much so that my son read through the entire CIAC football rule book to make sure he knows the rules inside and out. So when the next complaint issue arises, he would know how to defend it, because his biggest worry is wondering when the next coach will be taken out. Does this sound like a reasonable thing that a high school athlete should have to do this? Does this sound like a safe school climate for the athletes of the football team? This program is consistently being targeted and discriminated against, and I believe this is allowed to happen because of inconsistent application of rules and policies. Case in point, someone was allowed to take photos of athletes without their shirts on and send it into the school, citing a safety concern. However, no one bats an eye when the cross-country team or soccer teams take off their shirts. And as far as I know, no one has taken inappropriate photos of them and sent them into the school. Why are there no complaints against any other team for the same issues and concerns? Another example is when an accusation came in that the team was having a picnic on the turf field. This was proved false, yet this person is still allowed to submit complaints to the school about the team and the program. When is enough enough? I am asking the board to commit to being consistent and appropriate in interpretation of your own board policies and to ensure that the discrimination and bullying of the football program stops. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Molly Clark. I'm a resident of Durham. I have 2 freshmen at Coggins, a football player and a cheerleader, and 1 son who graduated last year in football. I moved to Durham in 2015, and I quickly found my place in this community among the football program, and then at Coggins. And I've been involved on the board of these programs since 2018. I have found that in this town, football is targeted and treated differently than other sports. At the high school level, the inconsistency of policy application among groups is astounding. Football has been targeted and held to different standards than other sports. And an example of this is when our social media posted a photo of an athlete being recognized for his hard work and was reported because he was shirtless, which is against the school dress code, I was told. When reviewing other teams' Instagrams, I found multiple pictures and videos of students that were posted by the district, teams, and the bench warmers in swimsuits or shirtless, and they appear to be acceptable. There is even a video that has a player taking his shirt off in school, and you can hear building administration speaking in the background. Another example is when the Coggins Football Club inquired about donating funds to purchase a 2-man sled for the football program after it was declined by the benchwarmers. So I'd be very curious to know what the benchwarmers have provided to the football program. We were told that we couldn't because they didn't approve of how we raised the funds. We're a private organization and you have no knowledge of what our bank account is or where the funds are coming from. Instead of being given the policy or directions on how to do this, we were just ignored or told no. There are members of this community and the Board of Education that have known issues with individuals on the football coaching staff and the Coggin-Chug Football Club, and they continue to file unnecessary complaints about the program. My ask is that the board commit to being consistent and appropriate in interpretation of their own board policies and educate your staff on what the policies of the board are. My hope is that you will ensure that the discrimination and bullying stop.
Good evening. My name is Karen Buckley. I'm the parent of 4 boys who went through Regional District 13. I'm from Durham. I'm a taxpayer. I'm here as a parent and also a football club board member. My continued involvement in the club post-graduation of my son from the program really speaks to the importance of the program to me and my support of both the program and the coaches. We thank the Board of Education for all the responses, both in writing and by call, for those of you who did that, who have expressed their significant concerns, to those who expressed significant concerns about the current state of affairs with the football club. Despite many of those responses being similar or perhaps stuck in answer, as well as the statement tonight at the beginning, and noting that the Board of Ed does not get involved in personnel matters, we have direct evidence to the contrary and expect more to come to light in the coming weeks. We have proof of interactions and communications with and between board members related to RSD 13 personnel that any reasonable person would understand to be those members being involved in personnel matters. We, like you, live in these small towns and are aware of many Regional District 13 employees who note the involvement of boards members in personnel matters and feel both targeted and fearful of losing their jobs. Regional District 13 has become a hostile work environment and it needs to be fixed. As you all know, there is a shortage of teachers in Connecticut, and Regional District 13 cannot stand to lose any more good teachers or faculty due to a hostile work environment. I understand that some of you on the board have taken recent steps to conduct interviews with staff to try and find out about the school work environment. I would challenge you that that is probably not the best way to find real constructive information, because there is no confidentiality for the teachers or the staff, and it also ends up pitting staff and administrators against each other rather than focusing on the real problems that are there. So with this in mind, we would encourage the Board of Ed to consider an independent consultant who can conduct an investigation that would permit employees to speak confidentially without fear of retaliation about their work setting, including the role of the Board of Education in personnel matters. This consultant is a model that's been used by the state to address issues of similar nature and would provide a safe environment to discuss the root problems and start to resolve the very real issues that are present. The activities that have targeted the football program and its coaches are a symptom of a larger problem that you have and are an indicator of a failure with the current system in place. We understand that the Board of Ed as a whole may not have had these opinions and may not be aware of some of these actions, which is why we're attending this evening and strongly encouraging you to conduct a complete and thorough investigation. And I appreciate your time tonight.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak and to comment tonight. My name is Catherine O'Rourke. I'm a resident of Middlefield, a nurse and a business owner. I have 4 children in the district, 2 at the high school, 1 at Strong, and 1 at Memorial. Between the 4 of them, they're involved with Blue Devils football, Coggin-Chog cross country and track and field, Falcons youth football, Coggin-Chog basketball club, Coggin-Chog soccer club, and the Little League. I have a vested interest in the well-being of my children, both in the classroom and especially on the field. I'm here tonight as a taxpayer, parent, and a member of the football club. The bottom line is we want a positive football program that was started in the 2023 season. We want it to grow and to blossom. As a nurse, I talk with my patients about quality versus quantity. and that is of life. In this case, we don't want just a football team. We want a quality football program with longevity, and we feel that we had that at the start of the season. As a parent, there appeared to be a breakdown of the system, as stated by the others before me. We didn't have these complaints or this hostile environment last season with the same coaching staff. We have concerns about conflict of interest between the Board of Ed members and the football program, which includes our coaches. Our football board has talked with school administration over the season multiple times, and the unsubstantiated complaints that were mentioned in statements before me have continued. The Board of Ed, both members and the whole, take an oath to represent the entire school community and to surrender independent judgment to special interests for their own gain or that of friends and family. And we are strongly asking for a review into how we believe the code of ethics and this oath has been violated. So we're here to ask you for an investigation into these matters so we can play quality football for a quality program.
Good evening. My name is Lynn Bender. I'm a resident of Middlefield and also an educator here in Connecticut in a local town. I have two children, one who recently graduated last year and one who is currently in the district here at Coggins. Between the two of them, they have been involved in football, track and field, basketball, baseball, soccer, golf, and in their early years, Coggins Little League, Soccer Club, and Falcons Youth Football. In particular, I'm here to talk about my concerns about how the administration or Board of Ed has been handling the Coggins football program. We currently have 46 players, several who are here tonight, who are devastated about the resignations of not one, but two coaches in the middle of the season. This is out of character for both coaches who have already put countless hours into the program and these kids on and off of the field. If you don't have children who play football, you may not understand the dynamics. I certainly didn't before my son started playing at the age of 7. Football connections run deep. Not only do us parents spend a lot of time together, but the coaches spend more time with our kids than we do during the season. Football is a bonding experience. My kids play other sports, and football is different. We're a family. We say this family is devastated is an understatement. We are concerned about the longevity of this program. What quality coaches can we now hire in this toxic environment where they're constantly looking over their shoulder? How are we going to keep our co-op status with these conflicts and outside influence of Board of Ed members and town officials? Last week, a petition was started to show support for the Blue Devils program, and anyone who had a positive experience was encouraged to sign. It has been signed by over 900 individuals, including current families, alumni, community members, opposing teams, and people who have had a positive experience with our coaches and players. It's a reflection of what this community thinks of this program. Many Board of Ed members have communicated in your emails to us in the last couple of days that you do support the football program. Thank you for those emails or phone calls. Now we're asking you to recommit your support for us. The current 46 families, the over 900 supporters as seen in the petition, and the future children of the Blue Devils football program, and look into these concerns that have been shared tonight. Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Greg Moorhead. I'm a resident of Durham and have a son that he plays on a football team. And I used to be a councilman with New Haven. And when I was a councilman with New Haven, when we had issues that was on the Board of Education, there were checks and balances that were in place. Ever since I moved to Durham 2017, I haven't seen that on this board. And I'm just talking just because I've seen a lot here. I was asked to be on the Board of Education and I declined. I said it's too political. Coming from New Haven, I didn't want to have to deal with that. And I just sat and watched for a time. and saw the same things was happening here. And it's like, when does it stop? This is a small town. It's not as big as New Haven. And we have kids that are involved. Like, when does it stop? When everybody's concerned about power and everything else, and they're putting all of this at risk in the expense of kids. My son plays here. He's devastated at the coaches, leaving and stuff like that. If this happened in New Haven, there would have been an emergency meeting that was called with the Board of Ed, not saying, oh, this is a personnel issue. Y'all have the power to institute an organization to come in to see what's going on. None of that is being done. So that obviously shows that it's more political than anything. So I'm just here just to ask a question. When does it stop for everybody?
Good evening, my name is Lauren, and I'm a resident here of Durham. I'm a mother of 2 kids here in district. I'm also an educator. I didn't come here tonight to speak about football, but before I share my letter, as a graduate of this school, as a sibling of a former football alumni, I just want to remind us of what used to make this town wonderful was our commitment to our community and each other. So while we explore this, we need to do better because these children deserve more, these families deserve more. I'm writing this letter as a concerned parent, an educator, and a community member. We are amid many changes throughout the district, and I'm very concerned for our current students. While we are very focused on long-term plans and outcomes, it's imperative we also make student-centered decisions for our current students. One example I find extremely concerning, both as a parent and educator, is a suggestion to move strong, 5th grade to strong during construction. I find it hard to believe that as a district, the best option we can provide our 9-year-olds, our 10-year-olds, is to move them out of elementary school. In today's world, they already grow up way too fast. We do not need to take more from them any sooner. I'd like to take this moment to formally request that the Board of Education, the superintendent, create a steering committee to explore alternate plans for better support for our students through this transition. We should be drawing on the knowledge and expertise of our district staff, as well as parents, to put forth a swing space plan that provides our students with a quality experience, not just numbers. At an assembly on Monday, Dr. Shook, you issued students a call to action that focused on integrity and teamwork. It is time that we issue that same call to action to ourselves as their parents, educators, and their community. Please do not let our current children be collateral damage for the greater good for an aggressive timeline. They deserve better than that, and it is our job to accept nothing less. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Erica Sharp. I'm actually from East Hampton. I'm here to remind you that your actions as a Board of Ed and your administration here actually affects 3 different towns and student bodies. My son plays football on the football team. It's his 2nd year here. He's learned lessons on that team from the men that coach him that are immense and that he will take through his life. These men are dedicated. They want the well-being for these boys. And I do believe that they are being targeted from an outside person looking in. I don't know the history of your town or the people in it or your youth program. I am speaking from my own experiences, and I urge you to take responsibility for your positions and treat the concerns that people have concerning your board members and your administration just as severely as you have considered the concerns that 1 or 2 individuals had concerning our coaches. Thank you.
Any other in-person public comment before I move online? You can always come back.
Here, I just told everybody else. Thank you guys for hearing us tonight. I really appreciate it. I didn't write anything fancy. My son is Noah Levesque. He is a captain and a senior this year of Cognac football. He is also a three-sport guy. He does track, plays baseball. He loves his school. He loves his community. So thank you so much. I do appreciate that about all of you here. I am here to speak about the football team. I'm here to speak about the current climate of our season, which I don't think is a secret to anybody. I didn't have to say much, and people I didn't even know reached out to me regarding it. I will say that these men that coach and take the time and dedication to our boys and one girl who is phenomenal, they are unmatched, and the town and the other towns that are involved are losing assets. And we are looking to you, we implore you to please look around at your peers and do something about it, because our hands are tied as parents. We are trying our very best to take this target off of our team. We are trying to play by any rules that you will give us. You're not giving us much. I guess all we can ask you for tonight is guidance and your dedication to every student and not just who anyone picks and chooses. Lastly, I will ask you to do one thing, one simple thing, and that is to pay attention to body language. You can say whatever you want, but what your actions and the actions that I am seeing as I watch the board from the back of the room all night spoke a lot to me. Thank you.
Bill, go ahead. You can hear us. Hold on. Hold on, I have, you could wait. Jill, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, can you wait one more second? Somebody else.
Sure.
Okay, I'll mute you for just a second.
I wasn't planning on actually talking, but since it came up about the political situation and the board in general, over the past,
Your name, please.
Christina Manning. Yeah. So over the past 10 years in this town, we've gone through like 6 head coaches, and it's all been issues similar to this. So I'm glad that everybody is finally getting together to do something about this, but where does it stem from? And that should be the job of like everybody to find out, because there is some kind of corruption happening here. It's not okay. This board hates football. I don't get it. Like, we're all really upset about it. So that's all I have to say.
Bill, try again. Can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
This is Jill Soboleski, I'm a Durham resident, and just wanted to take a minute to basically ask the board if they could reconsider moving our 5th graders to Strong School for next year during this interim program. Our now 4th graders are COVID children who've lost 2 of their elementary years, kindergarten and 1st grade, and we're taking their last year of elementary school from them. And they're getting the brunt of this unfortunate interim plan that's been going on now since this year. And I really think that we need to reconsider. We can't have 9 and 10-year-olds starting school at 7 a.m. and riding a bus with high school students, not having a playground to play on, and being exposed to issues that they should not be exposed to at 9 and 10 years old. I think there are many other options we can do for an interim plan, but we should not let our 9-year-olds be at Strong School and start school at the same time as our high school students. I ask that you please reconsider this for our kids.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Jen Sienna. I'm
Hold on,
a,
Jen, we moved it online, so I just want to make sure there's no one else here. Okay, they put their hand down.
hi, Jen Sienna. I am a resident of Durham. I'm also a graduate of Cognac High School and currently an employee. Did not plan anything as well. This is just from the heart, but I just wanted to take a moment and say, as a member of this community, as a graduate and as an employee, the biggest support I've had in my life as somebody from the outside has been from the Cognac football team family. My mom passed away last November, and if it wasn't for Coach D and for the entire staff, I don't think I would have gotten through. The entire family has embraced my dad and I, constantly checks up on us. And, you know, even as an employee, you know, I have my days, like this was a big loss in my life. And, you know, I've had coaches that have seen me in the hallways, middle of a breakdown, pulled me aside and have coached me through it. So I just hope, just take a minute and just reconsider how much this entire program means to not only families, not only, you know, the members of the community, but means to your employees. So just, that's all I have to say, but thanks.
Any other public comment? We do have it at the end of the agenda as well. All right. Move on to, I think it's now number 7, 7 on the move. Approval of the minutes, Board of Education regular minutes, motion to approve the October 9th, 2024 minutes. And motion to approve.
So move.
Second.
Second by Don. Who's the first?
Tina.
Tina, thank you. All right, I didn't have any changes. They looked okay to me. Anyone else had any changes? All those in favor, say by. Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstained? All right, superintendent's report.
Thank you. You all may recall in August that you had voted to direct me to present a state profile performance report, one for 22-23, which I did last month, and the 23-24 at our first meeting in November, which is what it states in the statute. Fortunately, that report, maybe fortunately, because you may not want to hear it tonight, is not yet available from the state, so I will plan to share it at the next regular board meeting. When it becomes available, if that's acceptable.
That's for 23, 22, 23, or
For 23-24. Is that okay?
Yeah.
That's all I got.
We expected, you didn't know 100% if we would have it.
Yeah, well, I checked this morning and it still wasn't.
Mhm.
Hopefully by next month it will be. That's all I have. Thank you. I know. Well, we have another long work session.
Staff reports, Kim?
Yeah, just a couple quick things. General fund ending out the month of October, we were 30% expended. We've received 33% of our revenue and we're encumbered at 98%. This is the best time of the year, the budget time. I have given the allocations to the towns. I'm going to speak a little bit more on in a request for an alternative allocation method. The towns have been asking over the past couple of years to have an allocation method based on a 5-year enrollment average as opposed to the November 1st average. The reason being, October 1st average. The reason being, any little shift in enrollment can cause a big shift in the allocation for each town. And we've seen that over the past couple of years. It's difficult to plan if they don't know what that percentage is going to be. So the ask is a 5-year average that they can compute and kind of know what the shift is going to be. In consultation with our attorney, this has only been in statute since 2015, I think he said. Let me see, and no one else has asked for this. No other regional. It's really only a regional thing. No one's asked for it. So there's really no established process. So we reached out to the state. The state said, Yep, have your towns, have an MOU put together. Board doesn't need to approve it because it really doesn't matter to the board in terms of 100% is 100%, whatever the breakdown is. But the State Board of Ed does have to approve it. So here we are. The Middlefield has asked, and both Durham as well, that Shipman and Goodwin prepare that MOU for them. And which is fine with us. I have an email from Shipman that they had to just let us know that while they also represent Middlefield, they have no conflict in interest of writing this. However, if there's ever a conflict between RSD 13 and Middlefield in the future, they cannot represent either one of us in this. I don't disagree with this allocation method. Like I said, 100% is 100% to us. And my question for you was, in my conversations with the towns, how do we pay for this MOU? We don't have that budgeted. We do have legal budgeted. The comment was, well, it flows down to the towns anyway, which is not untrue. At the end of the day, the towns do pay for it. But I was just wondering if there was something that we want to have Shipman and Goodwin bill the towns directly for, or if you didn't mind as a board if we paid for it. I don't have an estimated cost of an MOU. It'd be $5,000 or under. I just didn't want to say, yes, we'll pay for it. I wanted to get your opinion.
You know what other districts have done?
What else has done that?
That's what I thought. That's why I was trying to say
I
it.
mean, and we're kind of paving the way because I think once we do this, there's been a lot of talk, but no one's actually done it. So, you know, we're kind of setting the precedence, I guess, of how the state, if the state agrees it, other people will look to us. And that's fine. It's just, do we want to absorb the cost of that MOU when it means absolutely nothing to us? Or in spirit of being a good, and it flows down to the towns anyways, do you want?
Would that affect the state grant to the towns at all?
Yeah. It would not.
Because that's all based on enrollment.
Yeah, these are just enrollment. The ECS is town wealth, you know, all these different factors.
But not,
This is just how many kids each this town had in the school.
Can I just ask how that works? If you average out the last 5 years, and let's say that's the number you have for both towns, what happens every year when it changes? Does that get adjusted a little bit?
Yes.
Just as an average. So there's still gonna be some type of an adjustment.
Absolutely, yeah. But with it being an average, it's not such a huge swing. And I have an example, and you can think about how we pay for it, but the example is I computed it 2 ways this time because hopefully it would be nice, the towns would prefer if we could get this approved so that when they're preparing their budget, they can do it based on the average method, the alternate method. So I did it both ways. Durham has had if I do computed the standard method, the way the statute dictates, Durham will have a 0.26% increase, and of course, Middlefield will have a negative 0.26. Computing it the average method, Durham actually has a negative 0.16, and Middlefield has a positive 0.16%. So it makes a difference which way you compute it.
that's based on this year's budget. We're looking at the 5-year test.
Right. Yep. Yep. And I went back with the towns and I said, well, what is your intent? Is your intent to include this October 2024's enrollment? Because to me, I thought it shouldn't. I thought it should be 5 years out because then you could always compute it. They wanted to include this year. So there's still a point at which they can't compute it until after they get our numbers. But that's the way they are presenting it as their preference.
And you're saying they can do this whether this board
Correct.
says yes or no. The question you're asking is, are they comfortable letting us underwrite this legal work?
Correct.
I have Fabio Martino's listening. He was just texting me. He said it was approved by both towns.
It was.
At town meetings too.
And yes, both.
They
towns
want to do it.
they want to do it. Yep.
Well,
And
I
we
mean,
don't-
honestly, we should want them to do it because it's gonna help us during budget. It's gonna
Yeah.
help them prepare.
I agree.
Towns,
Correct.
without-
Yeah,
without
my
a doubt.
suggestion would be to eat the cost of the MOU because I think it's beneficial to all of us. And
That's my suggestion. I don't know how anyone else feels on it.
Considering 80% of the budget from both Middlefield and Durham, revenues collected, that's the least we could do.
Right.
I would compare the situation to what the state, we always worry about the educational cost sharing that we get. We didn't know for years under previous governors, and it was difficult for you. It's almost the same situation with the townspeople, the Board of Finance, the Board of Selectmen, who have to prepare a budget. The least we can do to let them forecast and really see. And the town of Middlefield in particular has been very, very arduous about looking at future expenses. We can't totally do that because of the whole holdback thing, but it's the least we could do. For sure.
It's similar to like when we talked about the maintenance for the sidewalk for Durham. You know, we took over that maintenance to do it in good faith. Hopefully that good faith that we do is reciprocal when we need help from the towns, and it's important. I mean, we have a $76 million building in Middlefield we need their boards and commissions to work with us. We want to be partners, you know. Absolutely. Okay, thank you. Okay, so I will get on that. Yep, so the allocation, I told you the increase. I'll just tell you what, using the standard method, 65.91% is Durham, and 34.09% is Middlefield. If I use the average method, it would be 65.49% Durham and 34.51% Middlefield. So you see the difference, but that's what I sent to the towns as being the allocations. Also with budgeting, the schools have access to their budgeting materials. Those went out in October based on the calendar. They're due back December 6th. At that point, Tippy does her first review. I then review after that and start scheduling meetings with all the administrators. Budgeting for Memorial 4th and 5th grade. A couple scenarios were going around in my head, but clearly what we've always done is we budget by grade level. So it shouldn't be too hard to sort out 4th and 5th grade and get that budgeted. So once we know, is 5th grade going to be as strong or not, we can enter, because we need to budget based on location. The state requires us to have where we have that grade. So that's just still, that's not something that we can't change at the last minute. It's just numbers we have to enter into the computer and changes it. So it doesn't lock us in. But that'll be a factor but we're planning that out so that whatever happens won't be difficult to move. I have another ask of the board is that we now have a para position that we're having difficulty having employees cover. It's an existing union para position that is essentially a job coach, and it is driving individuals, driving the van and going out, and we're having difficulty with anyone wanting to do that position. So Jen might be able to elaborate, but Jen had come to me and asked, and also check the union, the support staff union actually suggested this, is that instead of filling that, it'd still be the same position, but instead of filling it as a para, we fill it as a job coach, which is outside of the union. And then we can say outside of the union regulations, your job is to drive the van in this, that. So it would be no loss of staff in either. It would be the same position that someone is doing now. And it would be just out of the union. And if the union is okay with that, because that's a factor, right? The union oftentimes doesn't want to lose a member. So any questions? I'm sure Jen can answer why there's a need for that and how that'll look.
Just as far as the oversight and expectation, and everyone that comes in contact with kids has the fingerprints, but like, is there anything in that world that a job coach, whether it be a requirement or oversight, that isn't out of the union versus in the union?
So we would be able to require van driving and licensing through a job coach, which is not in the support staff union bargaining agreement. Now, that to me is the issue. We can't make someone drive that van.
Right.
And
nor do we want to.
It's gotta make someone, right? Or if they don't meet the physical, medical, whatever the requirements, you can't do it.
And Linda, we're going to use the job description that we use for our MTA job coaches. So it's, and use, same requirements. It's just not part of the union position.
Under the supervision of Jen and
Yeah.
also the high school administration would be still responsible for supervising. So. You don't have any opposition to that? Okay. Okay. And with that being an out of the union situation, if it doesn't work, it just doesn't work and we can go back because it's not a union position. I talked about the 5-year average and then October 2024, just last month, the per pupil expenditures unaudited were released. RSD 13 increased $1,133 per student. We are now up to 27,000. But also the state average increased $1,183,000 per student, and regionals increased $1,435 per student. So everybody went up, and these are 22-23 numbers, right? Because we're not. No, I'm sorry, they're 23-24 numbers. They're not the year we're in now. And so I had estimated our per pupil at 27,195. It came in at 27,386. So I felt pretty good about that. Those are pretty good numbers.
Well
When people are looking at budgeting time, those things really, they are computed, they are real. Let's see, regional school districts average 26,000. We're about $778 per student higher than the average regional. We're 4,000 higher than our state average, and we're 5,000 higher than our DIRC average. But regionals have higher anyways, because we just have a lot of different expenses that locals don't have. I have two just notes of thank you. I wanted to thank a couple people. I know this doesn't necessarily meet the threshold for the gifts, but we had memorial pickleball lights. We had bulb replacement. We had Nathan De Silva put in new bulbs at the pickleball light court so that people can play at night. That is valued at $2,220. It is a gift to the district. That includes the cost of rental equipment, donated labor, and supplies. Eric and Cam have also filled in cracks there that we're starting to form, so people are able to play there.
We have to vote to accept that, or it's under?
It's under. I'm just wanted to publicly thank people. Volleyball is strong. We had the Durham Rec volleyball group. We placed our volleyball nets at strong. Value of $800 includes net supplies and donated labor. So I just wanted to thank them publicly for that. Thank you. Could you get me that information so I can send her? Thank you. Sure.
Yes, I had asked, just one more thing, Kim, I had asked him to think about the issue that we have with the clubs in our fees, that if, well, whether or not we could put a separate line item in the budget that would cover their costs. So the community would be basically paying for all the fees related or a portion of the fees related in our budget. It would just say that if the costs were $10,000 a year for the use food like that. So just as we come to budget, that may be an option we'll look at, is to have a line item that would cover the cost that some of these clubs are having difficulty with. And we would have to deal with the policy committee, but we ought to take a chance to take a look at it, which would cover some of their concerns.
And I do have a history Patty put together for me, which is great. The past 2 years, everyone that's used the facility. And so that will be kind of an easy thing to kind of put a price tag to and come up with a number.
Well, what, bring that back to policy and look
Yeah.
at it?
Yeah, good.
It's already on the draft agenda.
Is it? Okay.
For next week. Yeah.
Okay. That's it. That's it. All right, committee reports, policy.
The policy committee met October 16th, excuse me, and we basically only had two topics. One was the board dealing with community announcements and flyers, and whether or not we should adjust our policy to allow certain communities. This one was in particular, was during Middlefield Youth and Family Services, to be put on our website. We've had a policy to prevent that. But we indicated that we'd have the attorneys, Doug was gonna get the attorneys to look at how we could do that with our protection. So that's one of the things that happened. The rest of it was on, our bullying and safe school climate plan. And we spent, quite a bit of time going over the changes that are proposed. We decided that we should look at our current policy modified slightly by CABE policy, and that Jen and staff and Dr. Shirk would try to merge our two policies, 5131.8 and 5131.91, with revisions and bring it back to our next policy committee. So that would then, and a lot of the policies are changing. A lot of it has new cyber requirements in it, and a lot of other things that are current issues that were not in our current policy. So those would be amended and brought back to the next policy committee. And that was it.
Building committee, back to you.
The building committee met also on the 13th or the 16th of October. The first issue was the paving Picket Lane. Basically, I don't know if people have seen, they regraded the gravel part of the parking lot up behind the stadium, and it's now been paved. And a section of the entryway into the school, which was not done as part of the road pavement, that was ground up and repaved as well. It looks pretty nice out there. There's new drainage soil behind it to take the flooding that came over the road and flooded the auditorium was last year. That soil is now on the other side of the parking lot, so we should keep that out of it. So that's one thing that's done. We we have been, Kim has submitted the reimbursement for the light projects, which was $337,000 and 611. And there's roughly $93,000 left in the grant for other improvements. So we're looking at a variety of things. One is possibly lighting up the ends of the track by the concession stand, and adding more bathrooms or lighting up the tennis courts. So with that $93,000, the building committee and the staff are looking at options that would be beneficial for the use of the rest of that money. We also talked a little bit about reconstruction of the tennis courts. The estimate was about $1 million. We're trying to get a quote for the replacement and upgrade of the tennis courts. So that's was that. We had a report that the bathroom usage has been okay, and we haven't heard anything negative. And that is working. We also talked about work on the various athletic fields. They started put drainage in at the baseball field, put drainage in on the outside edges. They put new drainage pipe in, pick up the drainage. There's another line that goes to the catch basin. And we haven't had enough rain to determine whether or not it's working well, but that drainage system has been installed, and hopefully that will be taken care of. In the softball field, they removed what he called a Coggins-Dock hump in the softball field, and they put in drainage from third base to center to the pitch mound, and that drainage then drains over behind the community center into the system. I guess apparently was never really connected, and so that's, I think that will help greatly with both of those fields this year. That last year we couldn't start baseball until 10 games out. 10 games out.
Next moment, right?
The other thing we talked about was the sidewalk. Durham is going to start work on the sidewalk. We've negotiated the location on our property versus the town property. They're going to take action Probably this summer, they'll have to close off a section like Strong School because of the narrow space there. That would be closed for a while they did the sidewalk, which would give everybody access through Maiden Lane, but that access right by Strong School would be cut off during the time of that construction, and again, after school is over. And so that's going ahead. Again, this sidewalk would go into the community center. And we also had discussion of the track replacement. And we looked at replacing the track. There were 3 different options. There was the current system is a polyurethane addition to the track and new lines. That is about $223,000 for that. Again, we would try to do that in the summer. We may have saved enough money on the fire pump system to meet that cost with the current money we put aside for that track replacement. So there may be enough money so that we could accomplish that this summer. We looked at a 200 spray system, which had a little longer life. But that was $410,000. And a 300 system, which would be $524,000. We also looked at, that would allow us to change the color from red to blue, but that would require a whole reconstruction of the track, right down to the asphalt underneath. So those are the things that we're looking at, and we have to make a decision on the track replacement. So that's basically all that we did. That's the policy committee, the building committee.
Ad hoc.
Yeah, so in the agenda, there's the October 21st meeting. Do you want me to also mention the November 4th, or should we table that? We could wait till, yeah. Wait till next time? Is that what you just said?
Yeah, because by the next one, you'll have, well, you still have 2 then. Yeah, it's not on the agenda, so yeah, just do that one.
Perfect. Okay, so October 21st, the ad hoc Special Education Oversight Committee met. I always start the meeting with the goals of the committee, the write-up that we kind of developed together to remind us why, we're meeting, established by the Board of Ed on August 14th, 2024, to provide support and address the recent challenges within the special education program, recognizing the importance of our staff. The committee aims to understand the factors contributing to the resignations that happened over the summer, with the work focusing on taking a look at understanding the factors and then developing recommendations with the goal of enhancing staff retention and ensuring the long-term success of the program and our district's commitment to all its students. So at the November 21st meeting, it was primarily looking at information that we had access to and made available to us. So we looked at exit surveys from staff who had left, and it was people who resigned, people who had retired. We took a look at that. The request from that came to take a look at qualifying that a little bit, quantifying and figuring out like were there patterns within those, because the way that the exit surveys work is there are some that are quantifiable responses and then others that are narrative responses. So we wanted to look at, the narrative responses and did those show any patterns? We also talked about what data we weren't going over. We weren't looking at exit interviews. Those might be a little bit different. We looked at job descriptions, conversation around, you know, are there lines? Where are the lines? Do they blur between specific jobs that might, you know, have contributed and been factors where people, you know, felt like they're either lack of clarity, compensation questions in job descriptions. We talked a lot about staffing, subbing. We talked about compensation as well. And then I shared in October that was when I was having conversations with staff that was voluntary, any special ed staff, current or past, who wanted to have a conversation, who thought that they might have something to contribute to the goal of the committee, which is to figure out if there were any patterns, themes with why folks might go and, you know, either leave the district, seek employment elsewhere. At that point, I had spoken to about 30 staff members from grades pre-K through 12, who reached out to me. Again, this was completely voluntary. I think that was it. So the action plan from that meeting to the next one was for me to conclude my conversations, quantify some of the anecdotal responses, take a look at other districts and their salary structures for special education teachers and staff, both certified and non-certified. Mr. Moore and Mr. Bro worked together on some numbers too that were then presented at the November 4th meeting, which we will discuss at another point in time. Questions?
Yeah, just my 2 cents is that there's kind of a dichotomy in talking about the salaries aren't out of line, and then talking about paying them differently, which in my experience, and I'm a union gal, that is never going to happen in Connecticut. And I say this as often as I can, there is not a teacher shortage. I just got the data. There are 30,000 people who are eligible to teach in Connecticut who are choosing not to. It is because the job is hard and is harder than it has ever been. It is the working conditions, not money. So I just want us to focus on the important work, which is if the case, and again, I just skimming the notes where it said that you don't feel as though the caseloads are abnormally high, correct? They're like in line. Yeah, and I know it's hard to do because depending on the level of needs of your kids, you may have a different number and all of that. So I think that the focusing on the salary is not going to fix. Focusing on just the numbers isn't going to fix anything. Having the support available, whether it's, and I skimmed it, but you were talking about the people who are directly working with the students, like that we need more humans in the seats working with the kids. Anything beyond that is not going to have the kind of impact I think that we want, right? All the research shows that teachers leave jobs because of the working conditions, they feel a lack of support, which just manifests in this incredibly overwhelming job. So I just want to make sure that we're putting our resources, meaning time and effort, in the right place.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
But I do believe salary is definitely something to look at. I mean, I'm somebody deep in the trenches, and let me tell you, it makes the conditions much easier if you have a salary that's more comparable or better than other districts. Because why would you still keep doing the same job? Like you said, if it's no different than what other districts ask of you, why wouldn't you go somewhere else if you're going to get paid more?
Yeah.
You know, if it's the same job.
I think I said about climate too. This is a desirable district, regardless of what we hear. It's a great district. You know, there's a lot of places that people teach at. They're like, oh, I'm sorry, you have to do that in Hartford. You know, and I hear that, I'm like, Okay, yeah, nice, thank you.
I can't remember which meeting it was that I shared the data on salary, but it
Most recent one.
it backs up what Dr. Darcy was saying. Our salaries and our pay scales are very, very competitive. We come in at higher than a lot of, well, the districts that I looked at. And when I looked at 3 or 4 different districts at their TA pay, their certified staff pay, and there was another one that
ABA.
it was the ABA, yeah. And we come in higher across the board. Yeah.
And I like, there's, there's all kinds, and I don't know, we may already do this, I don't know, but if you're a special education teacher, maybe you don't do bus duty, maybe you don't write, those duty times are dedicated to paperwork because, although having corrected 120 exams back before Power School, I can say that was time, that took a lot of time too. But I mean, just the other ways we can try and shore them up. I would never be a special education teacher because I hate paperwork.
Time was one of the biggest issues that
Yeah.
came up.
I would hope that the new teacher evaluation system, if that applies to this department as well, with focusing on teacher growth and not looking at as punitive, that might be good. I think always, especially as we hire new teachers as well, I just so hope more support. I don't know exactly what happens here, but it's overwhelming to a new teacher, perhaps right out of college. Here, I'm a teacher now. The 3,000 word team reflection paper, all these things are just truly like to the point, why am I doing this? I want to teach the kids. Why do I have to do all this? And it is difficult. And hopefully some positive changes will happen as we think the evaluation system will have positive changes, perhaps.
So,
Was that it? Student achievement meeting? Yeah.
you want me to do?
No, I'm all set. We had an update from the Associate Directors of Learning and Innovation. A new math assessment platform has been purchased and is being piloted in kindergarten. It can also be used for instructional planning. School Links, a college and career readiness platform, has been successfully implemented in grades 6 through 12. It was received well by the 11th and 12th graders, and middle school students enjoy learning about themselves from the quizzes and about future careers. The district has 5 articulated courses with University of Bridgeport, 2 sessions of criminal justice, intro to exercise science, psychology, accounting, and intro to economics. The cost per credit is $50, which is much less than when attending college, and all of these credits will be accepted by UConn. Math personalized playlist is being piloted in grade 4 this year. 4th graders are not currently at grade level in math. The playlists were developed to help the students. And a K-5 math cohort with teachers and administrators and coaches is also being started. We also had a presentation by the high school robotics club, and we got to see their robot in action, and plus talk to them about a lot of things. It was very interesting. For curriculum review, we looked at the policy. The policy committee had looked at the policy for graduation requirements, and they felt that it should be reviewed by the Student Achievement Committee as well. So we took a look at that as well as the shipment policy. Our existing policy does not align with the new state guidelines, but the new policy does. But we can add additional guidelines to whatever the state has. There was a lengthy discussion about the course requirements, both existing and proposed. And it was suggested that the administration develop a course requirement, which would have been discussed at this past meeting, but it's been tabled to our next meeting. A timeline for editing the program of studies for the next school year at the high school was discussed. Mrs. Stone suggested that she come to the October Student Achievement Committee meetings in the future to propose any new courses. And if a course is developed after October, it can still be brought to the Student Achievement Committee and it could run as a pilot. The group discussed the existing curriculum handbook and that since the district curriculum director left, there's been a void in curriculum expectations. At present, the handbook is a guide for curriculum development and improvement. And we're looking at revising the handbook, and Liza already started with the forms and stuff and really is putting it together, looking really good. So that's what we kind of looked at this time. We're gonna get it in sections, updated. For data review, Mrs. Siegel highlighted promising trends and challenges. Performance index scores for ELA decreased slightly, mostly in grades 6 and 8. She did not see a drop with 5th grade and lower grades. There are questions as to whether the deficit in critical skills is due to the pandemic, as other districts are seeing the same decline in post-COVID scores, or if difficulties in reading are affecting the SBAC scores. Teachers are addressing these deficiencies by trying to embed some of those comprehension, vocabulary, and spelling skills in other areas. Math is an area that needs improvement. The difficulty is that math is a building block of skills, and teachers are struggling with teaching earlier grade level skills as well as the grade level skills that they have to teach at the same time. It would be helpful if the FBAC could be paused for a while to give the students a chance to get caught up. Listening state of Connecticut. The iReady math scores were reported. Grades 2, 4, and 5 went up slightly from the beginning of the year. Scores from last year. Grade 3 went down slightly. IXL, a new testing program being used, shows much lower math scores than ELA. And then we looked at some DIBEL scores, showed a need for improvement in ELA. So I think overall, what we're seeing is that there's some improvement, but we're not near the scores that we were pre-COVID, but everyone is having the same issue. It's not just our school district. So some of the ways that the need for improvements are being addressed in math. So professional learning groups are being created. There's implementation of the math playlists in grade 4, prioritizing a comprehensive math curriculum review. There's introducing the IXL lessons at Strong, piloting the universal screeners for number sense assessment, and providing building thinking classroom and professional development. For ELA, there's monitoring and continuing the implementation of the EL curriculum, providing one-to-one coaching for instructional coaches, participating in the Science of Reading Affinity Group, and providing a professional learning in the areas of equity, especially in grades 4 through 8. In the area of science, the open science ed will be implemented at the middle school level. The science curriculum will be reviewed at the elementary level, and the use of the SCID model of instruction will be explored. The EL benchmarks for 24-25, it's an assessment data, but it's 100% competency-based. Beginning of the year and end of the year data were provided. This year, all of the teachers will be using the digital workbooks to capture data, which will make it a lot easier to be able to report the results. Students don't take assessments on skills they've already mastered. And at this point, it's difficult to discuss trends since the program is still new, so we don't have anything to compare it to. And then we talked about the ad hoc special ed oversight committee, and we already have that report from Tina. That's 9 pages of minutes. Okay.
She's like, I did, we were there for a long time.
You should put that in AI and ask for a 500-word printout.
Yeah. I know.
I think so. It's Tina Jimmy put a lot of work on, definitely aligns it.
Yes, yeah.
Gets us up
Yeah.
to where we're behind on a few things.
Yeah.
It's a tremendous amount of work.
Okay, board communications, professional development, Bobby went with about soccer.
Just that the soccer, girls soccer team won yesterday and they're in the finals. This will be Saturday or Sunday. We don't have the data yet, but they're playing Oregon, and they'll be up at the field, Trinity House Field, which is up High Ship Avenue near the Colt Building. So that we don't know what day it'll be, but that's
check right now.
big.
Yeah, it's supposed to be tonight, I thought, because they were playing tonight, right?
Boys are playing tonight.
Well, he has that, you know, most of you saw, I sent an email out to all staff, if there were any special events that they had that they want to invite us into. I've got a lot coming for next month. I'll send us a whole list of things, I went to the Strong pep rally, which was phenomenal. They really, the kid,
It's run by the kids.
it was run by the kids. It was so well done. And I said it when, we were during student achievements, always chaos in the middle school, but it was such organized chaos. It was done really well. They had the Veterans Day concert. I think Bob went to it. I was unable to go. But we always know music department does such a great job with it, and it's phenomenal. Any other updates I have, if you've had a chance, I think I sent an email on it, the track records, in conjunction with bench warmers and Liberty Bank, was paid for in full, is up on the wall up at the field house. So we have records, I think, all the way back to, what's the one latest back on that? It's like 1978 or something.
Wow,
It's
that's
good.
cool.
So it's pretty exciting. That'll get updated as those records break. And then most
It's right on
recent,
the side of the building, you can see it. Right up over there.
yeah. And then, I think Benchwarmer sent an email today. They just approved, custom Blue Devil, see if I can try to find it. I'll see the picture on either side of the, stadium where the railings are.
While you're looking for it, we also, the staff took out the bushes that are along the wall and up along the side of the stadium because they have a very bad odor and I think it'll add, if they've regraded it, it'll probably add a better odor to the area of the right around the stadium.
They haven't updated the soccer yet. Still teams playing tonight, boys. Semifinals.
While you do that,
Well,
I
I'll
think,
set it up tonight. Yeah. Yeah, we can
I
all
think
see it.
4 of the 5 schools I saw, did Memorial or, Veterans Day assemblies, which was really nice to see. And, I did get a chance to attend the Lyman, parade. My daughter was in over it, and I have to give a shout out to, I think, Principal of the Month, Mr. Ford. First time I've ever seen a principal, I think you were blowing the leaves of the walkway. In preparation of, I have to just say, I was very impressed, and so were all the moms with me, like, we just were like, wow, is that Mr. Ford? Kudos to you, kudos to you. Very impressed.
I also think the 8th grade class walked down to the town Veterans Day ceremony at the green. That was nice.
That's nice.
Jim let them down.
That's nice.
Communication from Robert Gammartino, your neighbor. He expressed that Middlefield Memorial School has always been our emergency center. So if electricity went out, people could go get buckets of water, going back to President Coolidge's days, to bring water home. He also thought that continuation of that would be important, having accommodations for, I'm not sure logistically what it would mean, but he also thought having like a family shower room, if it can be worked into the plans. I already see the design is already happening as early as January 25th, phase 3. But you know, that possibly could, it's historically been a place where people, it was a refuge of, okay, I can get water, in this case, a shower. Not looking for 26 bays, looking for a family unit, potentially could be worked into the system. I don't know logistically whether that could be done or not, but he just expressed concern on that. That was, by the way, a hospital during the 1970 Hunter Ridge Festival too. With the big emergencies we had, hundreds of beds, literally, they took care of people during that concert that never happened.
Yeah.
And the other communication we've had is obviously we've got about 20 letters from various parents from the football club and the football team. I tried to respond to, I responded to everyone I got. I think that we were gonna have the meeting and we couldn't address what you read, the personnel issues. But again, the administration's here. They can be talked to anytime about what's going on, but we are not privy to that.
Anything else? Only thing I have is professional development I have, I'm going to the CAVE CAP conference this weekend, Thursday through Sunday. Hopefully have a lot back on that. Tom Mooney and a couple, 4 or 5 other people are doing a skit for, legal issues, in compliance, and then we go back and realize what we did in our script, so that'll be fun. I'm moderating, one of the programs on legal issues, and, it should be good. I'll report back what I can and have, and I know the girls' soccer games this weekend, I'm gonna miss it, so. if
Do we have a
anyone
time on
goes-
that yet?
There's also a thing at the Elks Club recognizing
soccer
Bruce
game.
Matlock and Julie Sass.
Boys games are.
I think there's still tickets available.
After they're all done. I'll set-
Oh, for Bruce. Either be Saturday or Sunday.
And
Yeah.
Julie Sass.
Yeah.
Long-term.
Yeah, those are great events. Absolutely, truly the shining star of our communities. Two towns coming together besides the Durham Fair.
Yep. Yeah, I'll be there. I know Bob's gonna be there. Okay, that's all I have on that. Oh, we do have new business. New business, policy review, it's really quick though, right?
Yeah.
Page.
The policy, for those who don't remember, administration reviews have been reviewing all of our policies and updating them with basically with changes in law. The process to adopt the policy goes from the administration to the policy committee. The policy committee then recommends it to the full board. The board is required to have 2 readings of it. And it gets adopted after the second reading. The first reading was in October meeting on the ones that are up tonight. So the first one up is 5131.3. And we recommend to eliminate that policy and replace it with a proposed shipment policy to replace it in its student use of district's computer system and internet safety. It upgrades the current policy by all the current devices and programs that are out there, and really kind of ties it into the state requirements. And the third one on the list is the use of private technology devices by students, and that's how they interconnect to our system and whether or not they're allowed in the room in schools. So those are again done by shipment to reflect current state law. So this is the second read, so unless there's any questions, we need to have a vote to approve both of these new policies and eliminate the old one.
Motion to approve the second read on series 5, part 4.
Second.
Question?
No. Favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstain? Stephen, right, we'll put Stephen as abstain.
Thank you.
Is it abstained or is it just not present for that vote?
You'd say not present.
Right, so I was just thinking, I just thought that, yes,
I
we'll
think you have to say abstain.
Abstain
right?
is in-
we'll put him as not present for the. With that, do we have any other in-person public comment?
Hi, my name is Genevieve Laird. I'm a resident of Durham. I have a 4th grader and I have a 3-year-old. So I'm either putting my house on the market tomorrow or I'm investing in all of you, because I am really imploring you to really think about that. You heard the lovely woman in the corner share the update about how our 4th graders are not at math grade level in math. Maybe it's because they had 2 years of COVID. Poor kids from Lyman got moved over earlier, lots of stress in households, and now they get to spend their last year of elementary school at a middle school with no playground, no facilities, crammed, I think, into a hallway where you're going to put up walls or portables that are unsafe based on a variety of reasons, given gun laws and mass shootings. It's just throwing kids into a basic target. I just really hope that you will think about this not as your dollars in time, but our children and our tax dollars that you are spending, and the long-term ramifications of what this is going to mean for these children who've had so much change in such an abnormal childhood. And I just really hope that you'll think about that and also question the timeline. Like, you have a teacher in here, she doesn't know or a principal in here, she doesn't know what her job's gonna look like in 7 months. Is that really like the most ethical decision that we can make? Is this timeline realistic? You know, he said it's aggressive, but is it realistic? And why? Why? Is it for a ribbon cutting ceremony or is it for what's best for our kids?
Is any other in-person public comment?
So my name is Laura Samberry. I'm a Durham resident. You know, I think based on a lot of the comments tonight, social media stuff might not always be positive, but I can tell you that today's memory on my social media was Facebook. It was from 2021 and the girls soccer team had just made it to the semifinals. And I remember on that day, looking at Bob Moore, who I had just seen at the volleyball game the day before, the girls soccer game that morning, the football game that afternoon. I'm like, are you ever not? And he's like, I just love the kids. You know, so I know that the board has the best intentions in mind and that, so I did write a letter a couple of weeks ago concerned about some of the youth sports and the policies that were going into place that are going to be prohibiting the youth sports from being able to practice on the fields that are going to be their high school fields. So I just want to say that I thank you that you're going to be looking at it and for what was presented, and thank you for taking the time to look at that.
Hi, my name is Courtney Hosking, resident of Durham. I'm not gonna repeat what Laura said, but very much in support of that with all of the things going on with youth sports. I wrote a letter to all of you on behalf of CBC because we have struggles going on with that funding for our practices and the new policies put in place with that. But I'm gonna hold off on that because we appreciate you guys putting this on the agenda for the policy committee. So we will be present there to work through that. But my bigger thought for you guys tonight is just to step back and look at all of the emotion that's coming out and all of the things from every angle right now. And I think, you know, you're speaking about exit surveys and exit questionnaires. Is anybody looking at the amount of people exiting districts and staff level and saying, have we looked at the trend of people exiting over the past 10, 15 years and compare that to the changes that are being made by the Board of Ed? Because salary, yes, salary matters. But listen, I'm a teacher in New Haven. I'm actually a district level math coach. I work in 28 buildings. So I'm spread across 28 buildings, being paid a teacher salary. And I can tell you, if I left there to go to any other district, that one step, I'd probably get a $12,000 raise, but I'm happy there. So I stay. Salary's not it. It's a little piece, but it's not it. People are leaving for other reasons. They're leaving because changes are being made that are changing their happiness in districts. So consider that. Consider what are the changes that are causing people to be unhappy. You heard tonight from parents who are unhappy. Your employees are leaving because they're unhappy. You have to step back and look at what changes are making everyone unhappy. Teachers get into teaching for children. Parents are fighting for children. Are your decisions putting children first? Because both of those audiences are saying they're not. I can tell you again, I'm a district level math coach. My job is almost entirely coaching through things like iReady. You want to talk about math scores, I'll tell you right now, you use iReady completely inappropriately. You're using it wrong, 100%. My kids come home and tell me, no, they tell me one lesson a week. It's wrong. It's completely not how the program is designed to be used. The program's not wrong. You're misguiding your educators. They're doing it wrong. So just take a step back, look at your policies and how you are guiding your educators. It's not them. That's it.
Thank you.
Take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. Second. All those in favor? Aye. Aye.
Right.
Wait.
Oh, there's Steven. He was here. He tried,
I-
tried, but he couldn't, he tried to say it, but he couldn't. It wouldn't work.
Yeah, I said it the last few ones and I don't think I was heard.
Well, we're glad you're.
I texted you after each time, but I'm happy you heard that one.
Oh, it's Steven. Thanks, Steven.